Well, good morning and welcome back. Hopefully your transition to school today has gone smoothly. And so again, welcome back here. As I'm looking at what people are putting in the chat, looks like we've done a variety of things over winter break. Did some relaxing, looks like we got some scholarships, spent some good time or applying for scholarships, I should say, and college applications. Looks like we spent some time with family, did some resting, did some outside time, looks like, some writing as well. So good. You know, winter break, part of it is to use that time to get caught up, but it's also time to recharge as well. And that's always a hard thing for me to kind of slow down. My family is always telling me that I don't know how to relax, that I'm always on the move, which, yeah, I would agree. I'm always on the move. And so, but even this winter break, I did pull back from the schoolwork a little bit and took some time to get outside. Saw some eagles, went down to Wabasha and checked out the eagles. You couldn't go into the Eagles Center, but at least you could walk up and down the boardwalk and take a look at the eagles that are congregating there along the Mississippi River, especially between Lake City and Wabasha. You could check out the eagles there and then dusted off the ice fishing equipment and was amazed that I got my auger working. I don't think I've had that thing fired up for probably close to a decade. And it fired up after just a little mechanical work on it and got out and did a little ice fishing as well. So didn't spend all my time doing schoolwork and so forth. So again, it's good to see many of you made it back. And hopefully we are charged enough where we can finish strong here for this trimester. So as you can see here, I threw up the agenda here, and it's more of just today's just introducing the new unit. So we're not necessarily going to start any type of assignments today. I did hear the message, and if there's any schoolwork that I did over winter break was kind of tweaking what the next couple weeks are going to look like, and hopefully the pacing is a little bit better there. So with that, over the next several weeks, we are going to start our third unit of study, and that is authoritarian states. And we're going to look at some authoritarians of the 20th century, look at how these states are created, and then overall look at how these states are created, but then also zero in on a couple case studies related to Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin. And then trimester 3 will continue with this unit 3, finish it up, and then prep for that IB exam. So over the next, I'd say 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, all the way up to January 21st, this is going to be our focus. We will have an assessment related to this at the end of this trimester. So, and I think I've already got that information out there as well. And so at least have an idea going forward what's happening here. All right. So want to start off by kind of introducing a little bit of the authoritarian states. And I do have a little video clip here. I always like these little clips. I don't know about you, but I always like a little video clip. Kind of gets us teased a little bit here of what the authoritarian states may look like and how they are put together. And we can use that as a launching pad. So with that, I want to call that up. And it's just a little intro to a greater video known as Dictator Playbook, the Dictator's Playbook. We're not going to watch the video, Dictator's Playbook, but at least the intro part is a good one to start with. And as we watch it, though, there'll probably be some graphic scenes because dictators are not necessarily the most kind kind and gentle. They don't have the greatest human rights record, per se. And so, but I think this does a really good job of leading into what we want to focus on. So again, bear in mind, we have some graphic moments in there.
For the North Koreans, Kim Il-sung was the living God. And these people were being told that God was dead.
Mussolini wanted an overthrow of everything. He was a disruptor.
Saddam was so ruthless, so violent in all sorts of ways.
Noriega was a gangster in a military uniform.
Kim just cashiered his enemies.
Amin was a master strategist. He knew what they needed to hear.
Franco never lost a minute's sleep over the crimes committed in his name.
Dictators learn from each other all the time about how to deal with opponents, about how you maintain a dictatorship for decades on end.
Mussolini absolutely wrote the blueprint for how to destroy a democracy.
He understood the mechanisms of mass indoctrination.
No dictator can survive with just repression alone. They have to cultivate some form of popularity.
Absolute control over the people, controlling what they think, where they work. A dictatorship needs to have a culture of fear in order to enforce a sense of loyalty.
This image of control, that if anyone tries to threaten the regime, they will be dealt with.
Dictators create a sense that you might be picked up, or if you do something wrong, your mother might be interrogated.
Dictatorships have had an incredible impact in the past century.
These dictators ended up learning from one another.
They're all different, but many use the same tactics.
The use of terror,
propaganda,
control the elite, create an enemy,
cult of personality,
use violence. These are tools that dictators use to stay in power.
Okay, there we go. Just a little quick snippet into it. And we're going to hit some of those highlights. And in that little video clip, you know, it highlighted just some general characteristics of what goes into a dictatorship form of government. Now, you'll hear me probably over the next several weeks kind of interchangeably use authoritarians, states, single-party states, dictatorships. I'm primarily I am referencing the same form of government that appears in the 20th and continues into this 21st century. I always think it's kind of interesting is like, you know, a dictator playbook. So I kind of think of like, here's this big book and I visualize a big book, this big document that's there. And if you want to be a dictator, hey, you just buy it and you page through it. And, you know, that might just overly simplify it and all that stuff, but it's not so far-fetched. Even Hitler's propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, wrote an essay entitled Advice for a Dictator and for Those Who Want to Become One. So there are blueprints out there. Just might not just necessarily say it that way. And so what I have here is I got some notes. And you can find a copy of these notes, and they're single-party state notes. You can find them in week 5 in the presentation folder. And if you want, you can follow along with those. Interject as we go through this. I'll be phasing this up in a moment. As I'm phasing these up, does anyone have any feedback from just that little clip? Now I can get myself really caught up into the moment here, like I tend to do, and I can get totally lost. So chime in if you have any questions or concerns. All right, so I wanted today just kind of give an overview of origins and developments of single-party states, and so today's kind of like the big macro approach here, and I will try to be terse and to the point, and then tomorrow really begin to focus on Adolf Hitler. And there's some reasons that I'm picking certain ones, and again, you might say, all right, I know a little bit about these individuals, but when I think of the IB curriculum, and I think about the IB exam, you know, you're focusing on a few authoritarians that are going to cover most of what the questions are going to get at. So we're looking for authoritarians that kind of have the best coverage, and so that's why I'm going to focus on Hitler, Stalin, and Mao for those. All right, so the origins and developments of single-party states here, you know, it really does come down to being a phenomenon of the 20th century. And there are some reasons why the 20th century seems to be it, and that will come out in these notes, but then also perhaps in the case studies as well. And this phenomenon does carry into the 21st century. It's not like all of a sudden year 2000 came around and all of a sudden dictatorships disappeared. They didn't. They're still with us. We can look at, you know, places like North Korea as an example there. It is definitely dominated by a single leader, and that came out in that video clip as well, but it's dominated by a single leader here, whether it's Mao, Hitler, Stalin, Castro, Perón, Mussolini, Francisco Franco, Kim Il-sung, the list can go on and on. And, you know, their path to power is elaborate and systematic. It just didn't happen. It's like all of a sudden they turn the light switch on and we're a dictatorship. It's planned. I mean, as we found out looking at Adolf Hitler and bringing on the Second World War, there's a plan. There is a Stufenplan, a master plan, and how about going about doing it. But they have to get in power first in order to then create their single-party state and act on their wishes. And when we look back on these individuals and the countries that they take over, and that's really what we look at when we talk about single-party states, authoritarians, and dictators, is they take power. And as a result of them taking power and their style of rule, they create the most significant destruction and dislocation in history. You know, we can look at Joseph Stalin with how he went after his opponents and individuals that he did not think were good for the socialist model, that need to be made examples, and sent them off to gulags, or Pol Pot, you know, killing 25% of his population, known as the killing fields, clearing out the urban centers. You know, that's creating dislocation. You know, that's creating destruction there. All right. Historical context, you know, you're going to hear me say that a lot. We got to have some context. You know, why do these leaders emerge? What's happening in the country that is allowing for someone like a Mao or Joseph Stalin or Adolf Hitler to rise to power, or Francisco Franco? In some cases, you know, these leaders, the authoritarian state might be actually established, and, you know, now another authoritarian rises to powers. But when we talk about a crisis state here, there's no single party state that emerges during times of peace or prosperity. It has to be in a crisis. You know, whether that crisis is economic crisis, political instability, lack of leadership, unpopular governments, you know, wars, maybe happening, conflicts, all that stuff. I mean, World War I is a good example. It's a catalyst that will serve as a launching pad for someone like Benito Mussolini in Italy. Like that video clip said, he kind of sets the tone. He creates the playbook, and others will build off it. Adolf Hitler, in many ways, will admire how Benito Mussolini came to power, even in that again, that document that Joseph Goebbels put together about advice for a dictator, the last point he makes is Mussolini's work is unshakable. For his people, he is an idol. He gave back to Italy what has always been the surest and best foundation. But Benito Mussolini wouldn't have risen to power if World War I didn't happen and create a crisis state in Italy. Germany and the Soviet Union also used World War I as an opportunity to create authoritarian states as well, as we'll find out. All right, so historical context is big. Now we're talking about the leader here. Ooh, look at this. There's a young Joseph Stalin. Looks like he belongs in a boy band here. Lot different than he looks like that we probably the images of him in World War II. But when we talk about this, a leader, they are in many ways the embodiment of the authoritarian state. They dominate the political spotlight. It is about them, you know, and they have a number of qualities that could lend themselves to being admired or to come into power. You know, it could be their physical characteristics. Again, look, young picture of Joseph Stalin. Maybe that's a reason there. But the physical characteristics could be height. You know, if Fidel Castro walked into the room, I mean, he's 6'3". He's going to command that. But if, you know, if Joseph Stalin came to the room, he's only 5'6". So he's not that. Him and I could hang together with that. Intelligence, you know, intelligence could be part of it. Can they articulate their program? Personality skills or personal skills? You know, many of them were pretty good public speakers. You know, they're very confident and they know how to whip up a crowd. Their ability to recruit and gain support. Some street cred there. Both Stalin and Adolf Hitler are going to have a criminal record. Got some street cred there. Mao, he's a revolutionary. You know, he's gonna fight a revolutionary cause, civil war cause. He's gonna hang out with the peasants. They got street cred. So again, our spotlight is going to be on Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, and Mao. And we'll take care of most likely Mao in trimester 3. All right. Oh, there's that image again here. You got Zhou Enlai and Mao. Again, looks like a boy band. But, you know, taking power. How do these individuals actually get into power? So if they're going to create authoritarian state, they got to get into power. And so they got to seize power. Again, that's in many ways a key component of an authoritarian state here is to gain power. They could gain power through the elections, but in many cases, they're going to gain power through violent means, like war, possibly, maybe with the help of foreign intervention. Francisco Franco of Spain would be an example there. Propaganda, mass media, all that stuff can play a part in how they gain power. Mao and Castro effectively used guerrilla warfare. You know, Mao is going to be able to hang out in the countryside, pick away at the nationalist forces that way, eventually convert his guerrilla group into a conventional army, but that's more in the second phase of it. Castro fights guerrilla warfare from the Sierra Maestra Mountains and eventually is going to be successful. Hitler and Mussolini, different path, more of the election process is going to be their path, but they got to get the power, you know, and once they get the power, they got to get their message out. You can only do so much, but you got to have a message. And that message it could be built around a certain ideology. And we know that some of these leaders, like Adolf Hitler, is going to be a fascist. So that's right-leaning ideology, more conservative, reactionary type ideology. And then you got someone like Joseph Stalin or Mao Zedong that are left-leaning ideology. They're communists. And so they're going to have a very radical view. They got to get that message out, and that message can be in the form of their platform, and that is very critical. That's going to be their key to gain and hold power. If they can somehow articulate their platform, what their policies, programs, and actions are, you know, and they can have some throw out some simplistic sayings and stuff. Arbeit und Brot, all right, work and bread. You know, and understanding Germany is in the midst of a Great Depression. They need work and they need food. Arbeit und Brot, peace, land, and bread. You know, Vladimir Lenin, I almost said John Lennon there. Vladimir Lenin, peace, land, and bread. But the message, how they deliver it in here in the 20th century, you have mass media, radio, film, publications. All that is going to help deliver the message. Big rallies. I mean, Adolf Hitler liked to have his big staged rallies. Adolf Hitler used the radio very effectively, as well as film. All that. All right. So if you have any questions or comments or concerns, just always unmute and ask away. Maintaining power. Now, in that little video clip, got a little excited there. In that video clip, it did tell us that maintaining power is more than just using force. But using force is part of it. And so effectively using their secret police, effectively using their military to go after their political opponents. So you got to eliminate your opposition there, have some arrests, maybe some showcase trials, executions, deportation of opponents and rivals. Hitler with the Night of the Long Knives, as we're going to find out, gets rid of the socialist element in the Nazi Party. Stalin with the showcase trials goes after his enemies, also identifies certain groups that need to go after, like the kulaks. But that, again, that can only go so far. You also have to please the masses, and that is, in the case of like Mao, seizing property and wealth and redistributing it, kind of win them over that way. Same with Fidel Castro. But again, very effective use of propaganda is very important here. In some ways, creating a cult of personality as well goes in with that effective use of propaganda, really establishing the individual, like Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Mao, is the most important person, and build the concept and build the state around that individual. Okay. And finally here, looking at policies, again, you know, they can come to power, they can have a message, they can try to maintain power, but they need to follow through, and they need to institute some policies that are going to create their authoritarian state. The economic policies is going to be very critical here. All right, so asterisk, start, underline it, do what you need to do, put it in your memory banks. The economic policies is critical to fulfilling their broad objectives of their regime. You know, like someone like an Adolf Hitler, you know, he's retooling the economy with this idea of creating a greater Germany, which is going to bring on war. Economic policies need to be created and then put into practice. Stalin is going to try to industrialize the Soviet Union. Got to create the 5-year plans. You know, Mao is trying to industrialize kind of rapidly China. And so with their 5-year plans and, you know, the disastrous Great Leap Forward, Fidel Castro trying to create a little sense of autarky. Again, all these economic policies are trying to create autarky here. And Cuba has a lot of sugar, and they went on a 10 million sugar harvest campaign with this idea of using the money from the sugar harvest to really advance Cuba. It failed. The social policies, again, reflect the type of regime, left or right. But again, the goal is just to re-engineer, modify the behavior of the people. And so that is to kind of create or recreate society, what it may have been or what it will become. Education is a big part of it too. Got to indoctrinate the youth. And so traditional education, backseat. The education policies in these regimes reflect the ideas of what the regime wants to accomplish, whether it's left or right. And then when you look at the status of women and status of minorities, all that depends on the type of regime as well, left or right. For women, if it's a right-leaning regime, women's rights are going to be scaled back. If it's a left-leaning regime, in theory, the dial is going to move forward for women. For minorities, well, they're simply going to be the targets in the regimes. The treatment may vary. In the case of, like, Adolf Hitler purposely going after minorities. But if, someone like a Juan Perón of Argentina, that might not necessarily be an important policy for the type of Argentina that Juan Perón wants to create here. So it really depends on the type of regime here. Okay. And so again, here we are going to spotlight several authoritarians, and you got one staring right at you, an Adolf Hitler there, and those deep eyes are getting right at you. Okay, so I kind of went through it rather quickly with those notes, but again, it's kind of like the blueprint or the framework that we're going to build on. So now we're going to look at these individuals like Adolf Hitler, and we're going to look at how does the guy rise to power. We know what he's like, and how does he become the leader of Germany? And he has something in common that many of our U.S. presidents have of the 20th century. It found themselves on the cover of Time magazine as Time Man of the Year, which Adolf Hitler is going to get. So we want to see how this guy rises to power, how he maintains his power, what kind of policies he's going to put into play, and then it collapses. With the fall, with Germany losing World War II, Hitler's regime goes down. And so looking at that part is very important as well. Is now the regimes have fallen, where do we go from there? The rebuilding phase. So again, that's where we talk about destruction and dislocation, and then the decades that countries are set behind as a result of this, a result of these types of leaders. So that'll be kind of like the pattern that we have there. All right. I did open up also the assignment that is going to really open up later in the week, or that you will officially start later in the week. I think it's on Thursday, but if you want to get a head start on it, you go right ahead. So that was some of the feedback I got as well. Okay, so that's the intro to our Unit 3. Does anyone have any questions on this intro? All right, so tomorrow, again, Adolf Hitler. Take a look at that. Maybe I'll bring some things in you may not know about him, or just confirm some things that you know about him. And just want to throw out there, just remember January 19th is a Tuesday, in which if you're missing anything, you can get that stuff in. Whether it's formative and summative, please do. If you have questions or concerns with anything that you're missing, or anything that's going to be happening, be sure you send me a note or pop in during office hours. I will be glad to discuss it, or just stay on and you can ask me at that point as well. So with that, that's all I got for you today. I'm going to cut you loose and you enjoy this beautiful Monday.